Heritage just came out and wrote a report yesterday saying the Army only has 29 out of 50 required brigades that are combat ready. The Navy has 290 ships, but the requirement is 400. The Air Force is significantly short pilots, and they're not flying all the airplanes that they have due to readiness problems. And the Marine Corps is 67% ready when the standard is 90%. So we have a long way to go.
Well, I think one of the most important things that the United States can do is to make very clear to the authorities in Beijing that the U.S. and the world is watching, that if the Chinese do decide to intervene, especially with force and violence, that this is not going to just occur in the dark of night, and that everyone will go back to business as usual the following Monday morning, that there will be consequences.
But Iran's behavior all along, Liz, has been bad, as we know. Remember back this summer, shooting down drones, the attack on the Saudi oil facilities, bombing, explosives on tankers, mines on tankers, seizing tankers. Iran is a bad actor and a real threat to international security. This is just the latest news on that.
Companies absolutely have to be aware that this type of geopolitical insider threat is a very real consideration that they have to consider and deal with. So, for example, if I was China, there's no amount of money I wouldn't spend to have an inside look in what was going on in, say, Google or Facebook. And so these are the types of things that the problem is so big, it's going to take a concerted effort. But right now, the government and industry have spent more time giving each other the Heisman, trying not to engage in the way that's necessary, and we just can't do that any longer. The challenges and the threats are too big to allow that to happen.
It's a horrific situation, and it's all the more reason why we need to secure our own border and keep those problems south of it. We need a wall, we need to close the loopholes, and we need the Mexican military to continue what they're doing in battling these cartels.
There are no real reasons that North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, and those countries are part of the climate accord because they want to do something about climate change. They are there because it's toothless and meaningless. And even Secretary of State John Kerry, when he was negotiating the climate accord, said that even if the developing countries do what they do now, that what the United States does and what the rest of the developed world does isn't going to make a difference in terms of averting global warming or averting sea level rise. So no matter what your position on the climate sciences or climate change or climate policy, this is all cost and no meaningful climate benefit.
And then she proposed a way to pay for it, and her pay-fors cover about 35% of the total cost.
There is just no way, and her plan admits that there's no way that the wealthy alone can pay for this explosion of government spending. And I think most importantly, we lose control over our own healthcare decisions, our own healthcare plans, and it takes that away from the 164 million people here that enjoy having their own health plans provided by the private sector.
The Electoral College system is how we elect our president, and that's how we've been doing it since George Washington. And for those who criticize it, no, it's actually a good system. Why? It ensures that the person who wins the presidency is attracting a broad spectrum of Americans from across the country, as opposed to a candidate in a national popular vote system who just has to go to the big cities on the East and West Coasts to get elected. That is not the kind of system we want. You know, here the lawyer for this supposed whistleblower was talking about a coup d'etat in the United States, something that's never happened in our entire history. And again, this raises substantial questions about the credibility of not just this supposed whistleblower, but the entire process, because clearly his lawyer 2 years ago was involved in trying to plan getting rid of the duly elected president of the United States. That is just shocking.
What's really going on is that the Chinese Communist government is continuing to apply pressure on Catholics and, for that matter, all religious believers in China. They see these people not as some kind of religious organization, but as political opponents. That's the reason why they're looking at churches. Should they be shut down? They're looking at possible congregations meeting, and they see those not as religious events, but as political actions.